I am launching my debut book, Curiosities and Oddities Emporium, The Dress. And it has been a long, long journey to get where I am today. G'day, I'm Hockey, the ad hoc artist, and normally on this channel, I like to do art challenges. But today, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to share my journey that has gotten me to where I am today. From when I was younger up to now, just before I launch my brand new book. And in the process, I'm going to be drawing my cover for my new book. So let's go to the drawing table. I've been drawing and creating for as long as I can remember. I grew up in a small country town in central Queensland. I don't remember when I actually started drawing. I do remember certain images that I did in school. I used to copy a lot of artwork from Garfield and Mad Magazine. Mort Drucker was the king. He was such an inspiration. I didn't collect many comics over the early years. I would occasionally pick up a comic when I went on holidays with my parents to different towns. We didn't have a comic shop in town. It was a small town. You could buy comics from the local news agency, but that's about it. It wasn't until Batman came out in 1989 that I actually became a fan of comics and a fan of Batman. I was collecting detective comics, Batman, Catwoman, and occasionally I would buy the other comics when they had those crossovers. I did some copying of these comics, but mostly I just love to read the stories. I love this format. It's like watching a television show, but I could do it at my own pace. I could take as much or as little detail as I wanted, and I still continued to draw. I actually even remember attending an art class at the library of a cartoonist. The cartoonist, I cannot remember who it was. I don't remember the year it was, but I do remember going for a one-day seminar. I wanted to be a comic book artist back then. As I mentioned, I grew up in a small town, and I believe that I didn't have the same opportunities as someone else in the city, let alone someone outside of Australia. And I know now that this is a false belief. After leaving school, I didn't pursue any art careers. Actually, I didn't really do much art at all. On occasion, I'd buy a sketchbook and I'd mark up the first few pages, then I'd abandon it. I had heaps of partly used sketchbooks. I also wasn't buying that much in the way of comics. I'd still doodle occasionally. Looking back, I know that the drawing passion was still in there somewhere. I then traveled 2,000 kilometers to Melbourne, and still I wasn't really drawing too much. But I did slowly reconnect my love for comics. I was able to actually go to a comic shop, and that's something that I never had growing up. And I started to buy some comics, some graphic novels, one being The Excellent Rising Star. I'd recommend that if you have not read that. It wasn't until I traveled another 3,000 kilometers to Darwin that I actually started drawing again. I attended the Northern Territory University, but for information technology. But they allowed me to have an elective, my own class that I could choose from anything at the university. And I chose my elective to be in drawing. I did enjoy that class. We got to do figure drawing, landscape drawing, went to museums and drawing within the museums, and I really did enjoy it. But the spark had not really come back yet. It was building. My then girlfriend, now wife, fell pregnant, and we moved again another 3,000 kilometers to Bathurst so I could attend another university that was more geared towards making computer games. It's still programming though, so it was a programming course that was geared towards the idea of computer games. But it was still nagging at me, and I realized obviously later that it wasn't programming that I wanted to create. I remember making a computer game that was inspired by the surfing in California games. I drew the little surfer man myself and the background and all the elements. It was weird. It was a coin collecting game where you surfed to collect the coins and avoiding crabs that would slow you down, or there was eventually this shark would come and obviously eat you. You'd wipe out if you took a jump wrong. It wasn't ecstatic, but I just remember drawing all the artwork for it. Where the artwork is now, I don't know. I did that as one of the projects for my cause. But then our second child was born, and my commitments at home went exponential. I had to get a job, like something that hopefully would earn more money for us. And I had an idea. A uni friend and I half joked about opening a comic book shop in town. Now this idea actually germinated in my head until I decided I will open up a comic shop. So I did, and I loved running that shop. It was the size of a shoebox, and my main seller was Warhammer miniatures, but I had a comic shop. I had one. I fell in love with the books again and the art, but I still wasn't drawing. With the pressures of real life and me not really liking running a business, after 3.5 years, I closed the shop. Sad as it was, I moved on to work as a projectionist in a cinema and then a 9-to-5 office job. Boring. But here is where the passion that I have had inside of me for all these years, laying dormant and waiting, like a dragon sitting on a pile of gold, hibernating, this is where it came back. I lost my job, my 9-to-5. And at the same time, a friend of mine was also losing his job. And I said, hey Matt, do you want to make a webcomic? And he said yes. And we were in. We came up with an idea of a newspaper style comic strip, a title and some characters, and we did it. Pencils and Procrastination was our comic strip, and we created our first comic, which was online on the 1st of January 2019. We released a comic strip a week. I was the main artist and Matt was the main writer. He had a quirky sense of humor. We were having a lot of fun creating these funny comics, and I loved drawing again. I actually started some online courses to help me improve my art. I was also working again at a 9-to-5, but I was creating art again. And still in 2020, when the world stopped moving. Due to COVID, my work contract was not renewed and I was out of a job again. However, I started back down the path of art and I decided I'm going to pursue this drawing thing. And I discovered a group of independent comic book artists and creators, and despite the world falling apart, I was having so much fun drawing. I was drawing and I was making fun comic strips. And then, in 2021, my friend died. His wife said I should keep making Pencils and Procrastination, but I couldn't. I wrote a farewell comic for him, and that was the last thing I ever did for the comic strip. I did continue to draw, and to draw, and to draw. And with the dream of one day making a full American-style comic book. I had had some ideas, even got a writer to write a story for me, but that had fallen through. But the passion was back. I wanted to make comics. As one of my practices I occasionally sit down and I write dumb ideas out down on a piece of paper. And after waiting so long on other people, I decided to look through my notes. I found an idea that I liked a lot. A story of a woman who bought a dress and would travel back in time when she put it on. And she would discover the answers to an unsolved murder. Inspired, I wrote the first draft in a week. I started some art, working towards it, and bam! I was ready to announce to the world that I am working on a comic book. So I launched my pre-launch to get people to sign up to be ready for my crowdfunding campaign. But I stalled. I got nervous. I found excuses. I was telling myself I wasn't ready for this. I'm not good enough. I need to be better. I was procrastinating. Pencils and Procrastination just wasn't the title of our webcomic, but it was my reality. I struggled with this for nearly a year, and it only occasionally worked on the comic. But this year, something changed in me. I was inspired anew. I started working on my comic again, each time drawing me further and further. I finished all my layouts, the roughs on the whole comic book, and I was very happy. I had a great story, and I believed in myself again. Only a few weeks ago, I got asked a question. What is the one thing I could do right now that would set me on the path? And right then, I set the date to launch my crowdfunder. So here we are, putting all that knowledge that I've gained from the years of practice and learning into something that I want to do. And what you're watching is the cover of my debut book, Curiosities and Oddities Emporium, The Dress. Well, thank you for listening to my TED Talk today. But what I do want to say is, if you have a passion for something, whether it be drawing or creating or making a YouTube video, what would happen if you pursued that goal? Don't let limiting beliefs stop you. Give it a go. You might be surprised at what you can do. If you have enjoyed this video, please go and nuzzle the like button and share your thoughts down in the comments. And while you're there, if you have any challenges that you'd like me to attempt, please pop them in there too. I have really appreciated having you with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You have an awesome day, and I'll catch you later.